You ever had one of those moments where the air in the room shifts, just a little, but enough that something inside you knows, instinctively, that nothing will ever be quite the same? For me, it was a Thursday. It was one of those spring days in Dallas when the sun beats down on your suit just hard enough to remind you you're overdressed for the weather, but you wear it anyway because that's what's expected. I'd just come out of a call with our Dubai partners, the numbers were better than projected, and by all accounts, I should have been in a damn good mood. My wife, Lauren, texted me around 11:30 that morning. Thought I'd bring you lunch today. I miss you. Simple. Sweet. The kind of message that used to make my day. We'd been married 12 years, and while things hadn't been fireworks lately, they weren't embers either. Or at least, that's what I told myself. You get comfortable. You stop asking questions. By noon, she was in my office. Hair pulled back, makeup soft like she hadn't tried too hard, but I knew better. Lauren never did anything halfway. She smelled like vanilla and ambition. I brought sushi from that place you like on McKinney, she said, setting the bag down like it was some sacred offering. Figured you'd need a break. You figured right, I said, leaning in to kiss her. Her lips met mine, but only for a second. A polite second. The kind of kiss you give your uncle on Thanksgiving. I tried not to let it bother me. We ate in the small lounge off my office. I sat on the leather couch, she perched on the edge like she was already halfway gone. I was telling her about a new logistics platform we were trying when I saw her eyes drift toward the glass wall that looked out onto the floor. That's when I saw him. Ethan. Sharp-suited, smooth-smiling Ethan. 28, marketing assistant. Came out of some Ivy League program with big ideas and a bigger ego, but he did his job well enough that I didn't think twice when my HR director recommended him last fall. Lauren waved. He waved back. And then, this part stuck with me, he gave her that look. You know the one. Not just familiarity. Not just, hey, I know your husband. It was that extra half second. That flicker of something under the surface. And her smile, hers was warmer than the one she gave me. I laughed it off. Ethan, I said. He's been putting in overtime on the new branding campaign. Lauren barely looked at me. Oh. He's smart. Charismatic. He'll go far if he keeps at it. Something about the way she said it made the back of my neck itch. I told myself I was overthinking. We finished lunch, and she left with a quick hug, saying she had to get to a gallery meeting uptown. Lauren's an art consultant, deals with high-end private collectors. Her schedule was always unpredictable. I never questioned it before. But that afternoon, I couldn't stop watching the cameras. I told myself it was just curiosity. Just to see if Ethan happened to pass by again. But he didn't. And still, something gnawed at me, like a splinter under the skin. That night at home, Lauren was different. She talked more than usual, about a new client, about her sister's pregnancy, about the new interior designer working on our den. But her eyes didn't quite meet mine. She laughed a little too easily. And when her phone buzzed and she picked it up with the reflex of someone expecting something important, she smiled at it, typed fast, and flipped its screen down on the table. You texting with Jules? I asked casually. She looked up too quickly. Yeah. Baby name ideas. But her voice was an octave too high. And that smile. It didn't reach her eyes. That was the first time I let the thought cross my mind. Not a full thought. Not a sentence. Just a whisper. Is there someone else? I didn't sleep much that night. And when I did, I dreamed I was locked in a glass room, screaming while Lauren walked by with a stranger, laughing. Her hand in his. My voice unheard. The next few days, I tried to shake it. I buried myself in meetings, numbers, negotiations. But Lauren kept texting more than usual. And smiling at her screen. And every time I passed Ethan in the hall, I started to wonder, was he always this confident around me? Or did I just never notice? By the end of the week, I started going into her text history. I know. It's a low move. But something in me snapped, some survival instinct. I had access to our shared cloud account. I checked it late Friday night while she was asleep beside me. Nothing obvious. Some messages to her sister, a few to her mom. A lot of texts to a number saved only as E. No last name. No emoji. Just E. And every message she sent was deleted. But the responses remained. Dumb ones, mostly. Miss you already. Can't stop thinking about Monday. Same place tomorrow? And my favorite. He'll never find out. Don't worry. That was the one that did it. That was the one that took me from suspicion to certainty. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more than texts and gut feelings. I needed proof. So I made a call. Not to a friend. Not to the cops. But to a guy I knew from a college buddy, someone who used to be a PI for insurance cases. Discreet. Expensive. Worth it. His name was Dale Warner. 48, balding, chain smoker. Talked like he'd seen too much and trusted too little. Perfect for what I needed. I want eyes on my wife, I told him. Discreetly. Nothing illegal. Just. I need to know. He didn't ask why. Just said, send me her photo and her car make. I'll do the rest. That was a week ago. Since then, I've gone about my days like nothing's changed. I've kissed Lauren goodbye each morning, watched her walk out in heels that used to turn me on and now make my stomach turn. Last night, Dale texted me. Got something. Meet in person. So here I am, sitting in my car outside a bar in Oak Cliff, my hands shaking even though I've closed deals worth 8 figures without breaking a sweat. I can't stop thinking about what's in that manila folder waiting for me inside. Photos, maybe. Dates. Faces I know too well in places they don't belong. And I keep asking myself one thing. What if it's worse than I think? Or maybe, deep down, I already know the answer. The folder wasn't thick. That was the first thing I noticed. When Dale handed it to me across the small corner booth at that dive bar in Oak Cliff, it looked so ordinary. Thin manila, creased at the edge, no markings. You wouldn't give it a second look if you saw it in a pile on someone's desk. But I knew it was about to change my life. I didn't make copies, Dale said, his voice gravelly, his breath sour with coffee and smoke. This is all yours. You paid for clean work, you got clean work. I nodded but didn't open it right away. My fingers hovered over the flap like the damn thing was radioactive. You sure you want to do this here? He asked. I looked around. The place was practically empty, just an old guy watching a muted baseball game at the bar and a waitress wiping down tables like she had nowhere else to be. Yeah, I said quietly. Here's fine. The folder opened with a soft crack. There were photos. That was the second thing I noticed. A stack of them. Clean, clear shots. Lauren, in her cream-colored trench coat, stepping into a boutique hotel downtown. Then again 2 hours later, leaving with Ethan. Same coat, but her hair looked different, tousled, slightly flattened. Like someone had been running their hands through it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Dale didn't say anything. Then there were printouts. Text logs. Locations. Notes in Dale's tight handwriting. Tuesday, 1:27 p.m., subject entered Biltmore Hotel. 1:41 p.m., mail, Ethan M., arrived separately. 2:48 p.m., mail left. Subject left 5 minutes later. Same thing the following Thursday. Then again on a Monday. 3 times in 8 days. Different outfits. Same pattern. Separate arrivals. One exit after the other. No room for doubt. I flipped to the last page. A photo of Ethan getting into Lauren's car outside a strip mall in Richardson. Her hand was on his thigh. His mouth was on her neck. I closed the folder. Dale waited a beat before speaking. Listen, I've seen worse. Hell, I've seen Messier. But if you're looking for confirmation, this is it. She's cheating. I nodded again. My throat felt tight. Not from sadness, not really. More like the slow, cold flood of rage rising behind my ribs. I want to keep this quiet for now, I said. You think they suspect anything? No chance. She didn't even look over her shoulder. He's cocky, she's sloppy. Makes it easier for me. I paid him in cash, gave him a nod, and walked out into the warm Texas night, the folder pressed tight under my arm like a wound I didn't want anyone to see. The next morning, I was a machine. I got up early, made coffee, kissed Lauren on the cheek like everything was fine. She smiled, too brightly, and said she had meetings all afternoon. Private collector, she said, curling her hair in the mirror. New guy from New Orleans. He's a little eccentric, so I might be late. I just nodded. Inside, I was already a step ahead. I'd called David Brenner, my lawyer, the second I got home the night before. David's a pit bull in a tailored suit, the kind of guy who makes other lawyers sweat. We'd done business together years ago when I was acquiring a warehouse company in Arizona, and I knew I could trust him. When I laid it out for him, calm, clinical, no drama, he didn't waste time. Send me everything the PI gave you, he said. We'll build from there. You think we can lock her out? I asked. Clean split. No alimony, no stake in the company. If we play it right, he said, and if what you gave me holds up in court, we can do more than lock her out. We can leave her with nothing. At work, I called Ethan into my office. I'd rehearsed it in my head a dozen times, trying to decide whether I'd explode or smile through it. In the end, I just stared at him for a long moment as he sat across from me, pretending to be calm. That fake casual confidence that young guys wear like a suit that doesn't quite fit. You've been doing good work lately, I said. He straightened a little. Thanks, Mr. Hadley. I've been trying to. You see my wife recently. That threw him. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Too fast to hide. At the office. Yeah, I think she was here last week, right? She brought lunch. You've seen her outside the office? I asked, voice still calm. There was a beat. Maybe two. No, he lied. I smiled. Interesting. He shifted in his seat, suddenly too aware of how still I was being. I know about the hotel, I said, watching his face the way you watch a car crash in slow motion. I know about the messages. I know everything. He didn't deny it. Didn't confess either. He just swallowed hard and said, it's not what you think. Oh, I think it's exactly what I think, I said, standing. And you're going to resign. Today. Quietly. Without incident. If you do that, I won't bury you in lawsuits. But if you push me, I'll drag you and your little affair into a courtroom so fast your head will spin. He tried to speak, something about feelings, about how it just happened, but I raised a hand to stop him. I don't care, I said. You're not the story. You're a symptom. He left 20 minutes later, escorted out by security, tail between his legs. Lauren called me that afternoon. Said she'd be home late. I told her I had a board dinner. We were both lying. And still pretending we weren't. That night, I sat in my office long after everyone had gone home, staring at a picture of the two of us from a trip to Aspen 6 years ago. We looked happy. Maybe we were. Or maybe we were just good at pretending even then. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, thinking about how betrayal doesn't feel like a knife in the back. It feels like silence in the spaces where love used to live. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with David. We'd start drafting the paperwork. Quietly, carefully. No confrontation yet. Not until everything was in place. But something in me still needed to know more. Why him? Why now? What had broken that she didn't tell me about? Because no matter how much I hated her in that moment, part of me still remembered loving her. The way she used to trace circles on my wrist when we watched movies. The way she cried when we bought our first home. The way she used to say my name like it mattered. I needed to hear it from her lips. I needed to know when the lie started. So I started planning one more thing. Not for the court. Not for the lawyer. For me. A dinner. Just the two of us. Somewhere nice. Somewhere quiet. And at that dinner, I would ask her one simple question. Why? They say never ask a question you're not ready to hear the answer to. But I needed to ask her. Not for closure, not even for clarity. I needed it to understand how the hell we'd gotten here, me sitting on a mountain of betrayal, and her, well, still smiling like nothing was broken. So I booked a table at Taverna, that little Italian place we used to go to back when we still celebrated anniversaries with candles instead of calendar reminders. I told her I wanted a quiet night. No business talk. Just us. She didn't hesitate. That sounds nice, she said, and her voice was soft, almost guilty. Almost. She showed up wearing the navy dress I bought her 2 birthdays ago. The one with the open back and the gold buttons that always made her look like she belonged in some Manhattan gallery opening. Her hair was pulled up, red lips perfectly drawn, perfume subtle but unmistakable. When she walked in, the hostess smiled and led her to our table like everything was normal. I stood when she arrived. "You look beautiful," I said, and I meant it. "Thank you," she smiled. This was a good idea. We haven't done this in a while. No, I agreed. We haven't. We ordered wine, her favorite Pinot Noir, and the waiter gave us a moment. For a few minutes, we made small talk. Weather. Her sister's baby shower. My workload. And then the silence came. It was sharp. Dense. The kind that wraps itself around your chest like a belt. She stared down at her wineglass, running her fingertip around the rim. "You're quiet tonight," she said finally. "I'm thinking." "About what?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. And then I asked. "When did it start?" She froze. Her eyes flicked up to mine, and for the first time in years, I saw fear there. Not panic. Just the sudden realization that the game was over and the scoreboard was about to light up. She set the glass down gently. "I don't know what you mean," she said, and the lie came so quickly it almost impressed me. But I didn't let her dance. "Lauren," I said, voice low but firm. "I know about Ethan. I know about the hotel. I know about everything." There it was. The shatter. Her face cracked, just slightly, like a mask shifting. She blinked, once, slowly. And then, like some strange defense mechanism, she laughed. "Okay," she said, leaning back in her chair. "Okay, so what now? You want a confession? You want me to cry and say I'm sorry?" I didn't respond. I just let her talk. "You think I woke up one morning and decided to fall for someone else," she said. "You think this was a plan?" Her voice was shaking now, but it wasn't guilt. It was anger. "Do you even remember the last time we had a real conversation? The last time you looked at me like I wasn't just furniture in your schedule? So that's your justification?" I said, my voice colder than I intended. "You felt ignored, so you started sleeping with a guy who works for me." "You weren't just ignoring me," she snapped. "You were absent. You were married to your damn business. You'd come home at 10, half dead, mumble something about meetings, and pass out on the couch. I was a ghost in our own house, and you didn't even notice. I was building a life for us." "No," she said. "You were building a life for you. I was just there to decorate it." I looked down at the table, my jaw clenched so hard it ached. She wasn't wrong. But she wasn't right either. "And Ethan?" I said, looking back up. "Was he your rescue plan?" She hesitated. Just for a moment. "It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did." "Yes," she said quietly. "It did." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. "I didn't plan to fall for him," she continued. I felt seen. I felt wanted. And before you judge me, ask yourself this: when was the last time you made me feel that way?" I didn't have an answer. But I had questions. So many. "Did you love him?" She looked down, then back up. "I don't know. Maybe. I think I was just so desperate to feel something that it didn't matter what it was." "So you burned everything down," I said, leaning back in my chair, "just to feel alive?" She didn't respond. The silence came again. This time heavier. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said finally. I have enough evidence to file. No alimony. No share of the business. You'll get the house until it sells. After that, you're on your own. Her face went pale. I see. That's all you have to say. What do you want me to say? She asked, voice rising. That I regret it. That I'd do it differently. I don't know if I would. Because even if this never happened, we were already dying, Michael. You just didn't want to see it. But you couldn't be honest. Neither could you. That landed harder than I expected. I didn't reply. I just nodded slowly. The waiter came by with our entrees. I waved him off. She stood, grabbing her clutch. I guess this is it then, she said. No, I said, pulling a folded envelope from my jacket and placing it on the table. That's it. She picked it up and opened it. Legal papers. The start of her exit. She didn't cry. Didn't argue. She looked at me for a long, unreadable moment, then walked away, heels tapping softly against the tile floor like a metronome counting down the end of a symphony. That night, I poured myself a scotch and sat on the back deck, staring at the yard we used to host barbecues in. I thought about the birthdays. The vacations. The late-night fights and the lazy Sunday mornings. I thought about how love doesn't end like a bomb going off. It ends like a faucet dripping. Slow. Persistent. Quietly eroding the foundation until one day you realize there's nothing left but mold. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No text. Just a half-empty closet and a quiet house. And then, as if the universe wasn't done twisting the knife, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. And the voice on the other end was not one I expected. Mr. Hadley. A woman. Young. Nervous. Yes. Who is this? My name is Natalie. I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm someone you need to talk to. It's about Lauren. And Ethan. There's something you don't know. Mr. Hadley, I didn't know who else to call. The voice on the other end was trembling, soft but urgent. I stood there in my kitchen, barefoot on the cold tile floor, staring at the blinking light on the coffee machine while the weight of her words hung in the air like a loaded gun. You said your name is Natalie. I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Yes. Well, I was with Ethan. For almost a year. He and I were. She paused, swallowed, then rushed through it. We were dating. Until 2 weeks ago. That caught me off guard. You were dating Ethan. My employee Ethan. Yes. I didn't know about your wife at first. I swear, I didn't. She sounded younger than I expected. Not naive, but clearly someone who'd gotten in deeper than she meant to. Where did you get my number? He kept a contact file on his laptop, she said. I saw your name after everything came out. I wasn't going to say anything, but after what I found. I thought you should know. What exactly did you find? There was silence. Then. Can we meet? I paused. Why? Because I think Ethan was playing both of you. You and your wife. And maybe something even worse. We met at a Starbucks in Lakewood. Middle of the day. Public enough for comfort. I spotted her the moment I walked in, mid-20s, strawberry blonde hair, denim jacket, eyes full of caution. I sat down with a black coffee and nodded at her. You've got 15 minutes, I said. She pulled out a small thumb drive and set it on the table like it was something toxic. I copied this before I left, she said. From Ethan's laptop. What's on it? Emails. Screenshots. Voice notes. Stuff between him and your wife. Stuff between him and a woman I think might have been helping him dig into your accounts. That got my attention. My accounts. She nodded. I'm not saying she knew everything. But there's a message where he tells this other woman that Lauren won't ask questions as long as she gets what she wants. I took a slow breath. And what did she want? She was trying to set up a new life. That much I know. Ethan was helping her transfer money to a shell company, under her name at first. Then later, under his. I stared at the drive. Natalie went on. They were talking about leaving together. About draining an account. And then Ethan started pulling away from me. I confronted him, and he said some things that made me realize how deep he was in it. Why are you telling me all this? Because I didn't sign up to be part of a scam. And I sure as hell didn't expect to fall in love with a guy who was screwing someone else's wife and robbing her husband blind. I exhaled slowly. You could have gone to the police. I still might. But I figured you'd want a head start. Back at my office, I plugged in the drive. David, my lawyer, came in 10 minutes later. I didn't even have to explain. One look at my face and he knew something was wrong. We spent the next hour combing through the contents, PDFs of wire transfers, email exchanges between Lauren and Ethan, some cryptic text messages mentioning final pull and switch day. Nothing direct enough to indict them outright, but enough to raise serious alarms. This isn't just an affair, David muttered. This was a con. She was going to steal from me, I said, still barely believing it. They were going to take the money and disappear. Looks like it. I leaned back in my chair, hands on my face. I'd spent weeks thinking about what she did. I hadn't stopped to ask why. I assumed it was personal. Emotional. Some tragic drift between us that led her to another man. But this was business. And that made it worse. She knew how my accounts were structured, I said. She helped set some of them up back when I was first starting the company. I trusted her. David nodded grimly. And Ethan used that. Can we prove this? If we can trace the shell accounts and connect them to either of them, yes. It'll be hard, but possible. I stared at the monitor. I want you to do it. That night, I drove past the boutique hotel one more time. I don't know why. Maybe to see if they were still meeting. Maybe to see if Ethan had another woman waiting. Maybe to remind myself that everything I thought was solid had rotted from the inside. I didn't go in. I just sat in the parking lot, engine running, rain starting to fall against the windshield, and I tried to understand how the hell I didn't see it sooner. She'd been distant for months. But now I realized she wasn't pulling away emotionally. She was detaching. Preparing. Like someone slowly packing up a home before leaving in the middle of the night. The next morning, Lauren texted. Can we talk? Please. Just us. No lawyers. I stared at the message for 5 minutes. Then I replied. Come to the house. Tonight. 8 p.m. You get one chance. She showed up on time, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, face free of makeup. Her eyes were swollen, either from crying or a poor night's sleep. I let her in without a word. We sat in the living room, the same one where we'd watched countless movies and shared takeout on the floor, and now, we sat like strangers in a police interview. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said after a long pause. Don't lie to me, I said, and my voice didn't shake this time. She swallowed. It started as something small. Ethan said he had a way to help us restructure your assets. I thought it was just smart business. I didn't realize what he was doing until it was already in motion. That's a lie, I said flatly. You knew. Maybe not all the details at first, but you knew. She looked down. I leaned forward. You didn't just cheat, Lauren. You betrayed me in every possible way. Personally. Professionally. Financially. You were going to take what I built, what we built, and walk away. Tears welled up, but I didn't care. I thought you'd be fine, she cried. You have everything. The company, the money, the connections. And you thought you deserved to steal from me because what? You were bored. I was done, she shouted. I was tired of being the woman who waited at home while her husband made deals and forgot my name. So you tried to ruin me. I didn't want to, she sobbed. But Ethan, he said we could start fresh. That you'd recover. That it wouldn't destroy you. He was wrong. She looked up. I stood. This isn't just a divorce anymore, I said. This is going to court. And you're going to face every single consequence. And then I added. Unless you tell me the truth. All of it. Right now. She wiped her face, breathing hard. There's one thing you don't know, she said, voice cracking. I waited. Ethan, he's not who you think he is. Ethan's not who you think he is. That sentence landed like a punch to the chest. I remember staring at Lauren as she said it, her eyes bloodshot, her fingers trembling as she gripped the edge of the couch cushion like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. I leaned forward, every word from her mouth now feeling like a live wire. What does that mean? She hesitated. Looked away. Then back at me. His name isn't Ethan Price, she said. That's not his real name. My mouth went dry. What? He told me his real name once, by accident, I think. It was during a fight. He was angry, drunk. Called himself something else, Eli Porter. I didn't think much of it then, but after everything started unraveling, I looked into it. And there's no record of him before 6 years ago. No childhood photos. No family. No social media. His resume is fake, Michael. Completely fabricated. The schools, the internships, none of it checks out. He's not who he pretended to be when you hired him. I ran a hand down my face, trying to process it. And you're telling me this now? I didn't know how deep it went until after I left. I swear. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he didn't just lie to you. He lied to me, too. I stood and walked to the window. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, fractured by the rain outside. I built that company from nothing, I said. I vetted every person that walked through those doors. Or so I thought. He fooled you, she said. Just like he fooled me. Don't put us in the same category, I snapped. I didn't sleep with him. She flinched. I didn't care. You said he had help, I said. A woman. Lauren nodded. Her name was Kendra. I never met her, but I saw messages. She helped him set up the shell accounts. She was smart, tech-savvy. I think they were partners, maybe more. And you didn't think to tell me any of this until now. I was scared, Michael. He threatened me. Said if I talked, he'd expose everything, make it look like it was my idea. Said he had enough on me to ruin me. And maybe he does. She wasn't lying. Or if she was, it was buried beneath so much truth that it didn't matter. I turned back toward her. You're going to help me take him down. Her eyes widened. What? You heard me. You're going to help me find out who he really is, what he's done, and how far this scam goes. I can't. I don't know. Lauren, I said, stepping toward her, my voice quiet but firm. If you don't help me, I go to the FBI. With everything. The emails. The transfers. The hotel footage. All of it. And you go down with him. She stared at me for a long time. Then slowly nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I'll help. I called David the next morning. Told him everything Lauren had said. He came over with a private investigator I'd worked with before, Miles Carter, a no-nonsense ex-FBI guy with a shaved head and the personality of sandpaper. You're telling me this guy's an alias? Miles said, flipping through the documents I'd laid out. Possibly multiple, I said. We need to dig into everything. Every email. Every address. If he filed taxes, if he paid rent, if he's ever used the same alias more than once, I want it all. Miles smirked. We'll find him. People like that. They always slip somewhere. You can fake an identity, but you can't fake a footprint. 3 days later, Miles returned. You're not gonna like this, he said, dropping a thick folder on my desk. Try me. Ethan Price, aka Eli Porter, aka a guy who's been running small cons across 3 states under different names for the last decade. Real name. Elijah Kane. Grew up in Oregon. Juvenile record sealed, but I got enough breadcrumbs to put it together. He did time for wire fraud at 23. Moved east after that. Reinvented himself. Got into tech circles. Posed as a consultant. Met a woman named Kendra Voss, cybersecurity expert, expelled from MIT for hacking government servers. I let out a slow breath. They've been doing this for a while, I said. Yeah, Miles nodded. And your company wasn't the first target. Just the biggest. What's their endgame? Disappear, Miles said. Take enough money to vanish. New identities. New country. They came close this time. Real close. And Lauren. He looked at me carefully. She wasn't involved in the beginning. But she got in deeper than she planned. We found emails where she questioned the plan. Tried to back out. He kept her in by threatening to expose her. I rubbed my temples. The betrayal was bad enough. But now I was learning I'd nearly been the mark in a long con that could have left me penniless and humiliated. What do we do now? We get proof. Trace the accounts. Bring in the feds if you want. Or. We bait him. The plan was simple. I'd reach out to Ethan, pretend I wanted to talk. Tell him I'd reconsidered the divorce. Say I was willing to let bygones be bygones in exchange for a clean break. He'd be suspicious. Of course he would. But greed has a way of clouding judgment. If he showed up, if he took the bait, we'd have him on tape, in person, acknowledging the fraud. And if we were lucky, we'd flush out Kendra too. Lauren hated the idea. She begged me not to do it. He's dangerous, she said. He's not just a scammer, he's vindictive. If he thinks you're onto him. That's the point, I said. He should know I'm onto him. That's what will make him panic. She didn't argue after that. We met in a warehouse I owned on the edge of town, used for overflow inventory, but empty for the last 6 months. We wired it with audio and video. Miles and David were in a van across the street, watching the feed in real time. Ethan arrived 10 minutes late. Of course he did. He wore a gray peacoat, expensive sunglasses, and that same arrogant smirk that used to fool everyone in the office, including me. Michael, he said, spreading his arms. Didn't expect to hear from you so soon. I've been thinking, I said, keeping my voice level. About everything. About Lauren. About the company. Maybe we all made mistakes. He tilted his head, skeptical. That doesn't sound like the men who sent her divorce papers with a blank check for a lawyer. I overreacted, I said. And now I want a clean exit. For both of us. He chuckled. You're lying. I can see it. I didn't respond. Then he stepped closer. You know what I always admired about you, Michael, he said. You were so busy building your empire, you never looked down. Never saw the cracks. The flaws. The people stealing from your pocket while you smiled for magazine covers. He paused. I didn't even have to try that hard. Your wife. She came to me. You handed her over. The rage was boiling inside me, but I kept my face still. That money, he said, his voice low now, it was just a bonus. You were the real prize. Bringing you down. That was personal. I stared at him. You just confessed, I said. He blinked. What? The door behind us opened. David walked in first. Then Miles. Then a second man with a badge around his neck. Ethan Price, the agent said. You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, and financial manipulation. You have the right to remain silent. Ethan lunged. Not at the agent. At me. But Miles moved faster, dropping him to the ground before he got within reach. They cuffed him. And as they dragged him away, he screamed over his shoulder. You think this ends with me? You think she didn't know everything? She's playing you again, Michael. I stood there, the echo of his voice ringing in that empty warehouse. And a sick, cold thought crept into my chest. What if he was right? What if Lauren wasn't done lying? They took Ethan away in cuffs, screaming and twisting like a man who knew something we didn't. But it wasn't his last words that haunted me, it was the way he looked at me when he said them. "You think she didn't know everything? She's playing you again, Michael." That voice stayed in my head all night. I tried to shake it, tell myself it was just one last desperate stab from a man whose entire house of cards had finally collapsed. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Lauren came clean too fast. Too easily. She volunteered to help. She offered me information. She gave me that name, Kendra Voss. What if she gave me just enough to make me trust her again? What if the betrayal was still going? I called Miles the next morning. I told him I needed him to dig deeper, this time, into Lauren. And not just her finances. "I want everything," I said. Her phone records, her emails, credit cards, burner phones, hidden accounts. If she used a library computer in another zip code, I want to know about it. "You think she's still involved?" he asked. "And she's tying up loose ends. And you think you're next?" I looked out the window into the dark. I know I am. The next morning, I received an unmarked envelope. Inside was a photo. Taken the night Ethan was arrested. Of me. Standing in the warehouse. Smiling. On the back was a single word. Next. It's a strange thing, realizing your life has become the plot of a thriller, only you're not the hero. You're not the villain either. You're just the man standing in the middle, wondering how you didn't see it coming. By the time I received that photo, me, captured in that warehouse the night Ethan was arrested, I knew the game wasn't over. The back said one word. Next. I'd stared at it for 10 minutes without blinking, my fingers cold, my chest tight. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Kendra was out there. And she wanted to finish what she and Ethan started. Or worse, what Lauren had started. The next 48 hours were chaos. I pulled Natalie out of her apartment, set her up in a corporate safehouse I used for executive emergencies. Miles had one of his tech guys sweep my home, my car, and my office for bugs. We found one, under my desk. Miles didn't say a word. He just handed me the small black device, like it was a trophy from a war I hadn't realized I'd already lost. "Someone's been listening," he said. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking of Lauren. Her voice. That cold, flat smile when she admitted everything. "You gave me security, not power." She wanted more. And she'd found someone who could give it to her. But now Ethan was in jail. And Kendra, whoever she was still in the wind. And I had to assume Lauren was working with her. I had one final card left to play. Her name was Susan Worth. She'd been Ethan's first real employer after he got out of prison, 10 years ago. Small tech startup in Austin, Texas. She didn't take calls anymore, but Miles convinced her to meet me. She was older now, silver hair, sharp eyes, and a voice like gravel after a storm. "I fired him after 6 months," she said. "He was brilliant. But dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "He didn't just want to succeed," she said. "He wanted to destroy. He wanted to prove the system was broken by breaking it from the inside." "Did he ever mention Kendra?" Her eyes darkened. She was the one who taught him how. The story she told me chilled me to the bone. Kendra wasn't just a hacker. She was a planner. A strategist. She recruited Ethan when he was fresh out of prison, resentful and brilliant. She used him as a front, charismatic, charming, educated on paper, and helped him worm his way into companies, then get them from the inside. And Lauren. She didn't appear on the radar until you, Susan said. That's when they got bold. Personal. I sat back. My pulse drumming. "This was never about the money," I said. "This was about me." Susan met my gaze. "You made enemies you didn't even know about, Mr. Hadley." The next day, I received another envelope. Inside was a USB stick. I scanned it for viruses, clean. Then I plugged it in. There was one folder. Confession. Inside, video files. Dozens of them. Phone footage. Security cams. Hidden audio recordings. Lauren. Ethan. Kendra. In one, Lauren's voice is clear, confident, almost smug. Michael doesn't ask questions. That's his weakness. He thinks loyalty means silence. That's what makes him so easy. In another, Ethan is talking to Kendra through an encrypted call. We take what we can, pin the rest on Lauren if it goes south. She's the perfect scapegoat. Desperate. Betrayed. No one will believe she's smart enough to orchestrate any of this. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched. So that was it. She was the pawn. And she thought she was the queen. I sent the entire folder to Miles. To David. To the FBI. The response came fast. Within 12 hours, Lauren Hadley was arrested at a private hangar in upstate New York. She was minutes from boarding a jet to Panama. She didn't say a word to the arresting agents. Didn't fight. Didn't cry. Just smiled. But it wasn't over. Because Kendra was still gone. 2 weeks passed. The trial preparations began. Lauren was held without bail. Ethan had gone silent behind bars. And I tried to piece together the ruins. My name had been dragged through the press. My company took a hit. I lost clients. Investors. But I also got something back. Clarity. I started rebuilding. Not just the business, but my understanding of the people I'd once trusted without hesitation. Natalie stayed in town. She testified. She helped the feds track some of the digital pathways Kendra used. Her courage, in the end, was what helped us take Lauren down. But Kendra. She remained a ghost. Until one night. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I almost ignored it. Then I picked up. A voice, distorted, but calm. You survived. I underestimated you. My stomach turned. Kendra. Silence. Then. They'll make an example of Lauren. They always do. But remember, she only betrayed you after you stopped seeing her. I saw her. You saw what you wanted. You always do. What do you want? A pause. Nothing. You've already lost enough. Then she hung up. I stared out my window for a long time that night. There was no point chasing her. She was smoke in a system she knew how to bend. But I had won the only war I cared about. I had the truth. And in this world, that's rarer than justice. The day Lauren was sentenced, she looked at me once in court. No anger. No regret. Just the same quiet smile. The judge called it calculated betrayal. I called it the end of a nightmare. Ethan got 20 years. Lauren got 12. Kendra vanished. But sometimes, in the quiet, when the wind brushes against the windows at night, I think of her. Of how close they came to destroying me. Of how much I lost before I saw the truth. And of the one thing Lauren never said. The thing I think I always knew. She loved what I could give her. But she never really loved me.